The theft in the moonlight. The night was cold and silent. The wind moved slowly through the trees. Mark sat inside his small cabin, sipping hot tea and watching the moonlight fall on his vegetable garden outside. He lived alone on this quiet planet. No neighbors, no noise. Just peace. But tonight, something was wrong. His dog Rusty suddenly stood up and growled low. Mark froze. Then he heard it too. Soft footsteps near the garden. Someone, or something, was out there. Mark quietly grabbed his jacket and flashlight. He opened the cabin, door slowly. The cold air rushed in. He stepped outside, careful not to make a sound. Rusty followed him, tail low, nose sniffing. Then he saw it. A shadow moved between the rows of vegetables, small, thin, fast. It bent down and grabbed something, a carrot. Then another. Its hands were shaking. Mark whispered, "Hey, who's there?" The figure jumped. It turned for just a second. And in that moment, Mark saw the face. Not human. Big eyes, pale skin, glowing lines on her neck. It was a woman, but not from Earth. She dropped the vegetables and ran. "Wait!" Mark shouted. She ran toward the woods behind his cabin. Mark followed without thinking. His boots hit the ground hard as he pushed through branches. The woman was fast but not strong. She stumbled once, then again, and then she fell. Mark reached her and stopped. She was on her knees, breathing hard, arms wrapped around her stomach. Her clothes were dirty and torn. Her body shook from the cold. He raised his flashlight. Her eyes squinted at the light, full of fear. "Please," she whispered. "Don't hurt me." Mark didn't move. "I wasn't stealing," she said weakly. "I mean, I was, but I had to. My child." She looked behind her, toward the trees. Mark turned his light and followed her gaze. And there, barely visible under a pile of dry leaves, lay a small bundle, a tiny shape. It moved slightly. "My child is hungry," the woman said. "Please." Mark stared at the bundle, then at the alien woman. She looked weak, starving, her face pale and sunken, yet her eyes were full of pain, and something more, fear. But not of Mark, of something else. He slowly stepped toward the leaves. The bundle moved again. He reached down and gently pulled the blanket away. Inside was a small alien child, big eyes like his mother, thin arms, bluish skin. The child looked up at him but didn't speak. Mark knelt beside them. "They'll die out here," he thought. He looked at the woman again. She tried to crawl toward her child but couldn't. Mark took off his jacket and placed it over the child. Then he bent down and carefully picked the small alien up. The child didn't resist, just rested its head on his chest. Next, he held out his hand to the mother. "Can you walk?" She looked up at him, shocked. Then she nodded slowly. Mark helped her to her feet. She was shaking badly. Her legs barely worked. He led them both back toward the cabin. Rusty barked once when he saw them return but stayed calm. Inside the cabin, Mark placed the child on the couch and covered him with warm blankets. The woman sank to the floor, holding her arms around herself. Mark brought a bowl of soup and placed it in front of her. She looked at it, then looked at him. "Why? Are you helping me?" she asked. Mark didn't answer right away. He just looked at her. "Because you needed help," he finally said. The woman's eyes filled with tears. She picked up the bowl slowly and drank carefully, as if it were a treasure. The child stirred under the blankets and let out a soft sound. The mother crawled over and held him close. Mark sat across the room, still watching. He didn't know who they were. He didn't know what trouble they might bring. But he saw something in her eyes that night. Something he couldn't ignore. Desperation, love, hope, and somewhere deep inside he knew this night would change everything. The child in the shadows. The alien woman lay curled on the cabin floor, her thin arms holding her child close. Mark had given them warm blankets, soft bread, and a hot drink. The cabin was small, but it was safe, and warmer than the forest outside. Mark didn't sleep that night. He sat in his chair, watching. His eyes kept moving between the mother and her child. He didn't even know their names. He only knew one thing. They were scared. At sunrise, Mark boiled water and poured some into a metal cup. He added more soup and placed it near the woman again. She didn't move at first, then slowly she lifted her head. "I saved this," she said, her voice rough. She showed the piece of bread Mark had given her last night. She hadn't eaten it. She gave it to her child instead. Mark walked closer and knelt by the child. The little alien had strange purple spots on his cheeks and tiny claws on his fingers. He looked weak, but not afraid of Mark anymore. "What's his name?" Mark asked softly. The woman blinked slowly. "Tariq," she said. Mark nodded. "And you?" She hesitated. "Leary." Mark looked at the child again. "He needs food and medicine. He's burning up." "I know," she whispered. "He's sick. We ran for 3 days, no shelter, no clean water." Mark stood and opened his medicine cabinet. He brought out something mild, basic fever medicine. It was made for humans, but it was all he had. "Let's try," he said, pouring a small amount into a spoon. Leary nodded slowly, trusting him. She lifted Tariq gently and Mark gave the child the medicine. Tariq swallowed weakly, then coughed once. His mother wiped his mouth and kissed his forehead. "Why were you out there?" Mark finally asked. "Why steal from me?" Leary was silent for a while. Then she spoke. "I was part of a cleaning crew," she said. "They brought us from a mining colony, said we'd be safe, that we'd get food, pay, a place to live." She closed her eyes tightly, but it was a lie. "They locked us in the work camp, took our IDs. We worked until we collapsed. My mate, he died. They dumped his body outside the fence." Mark felt his chest grow tight. He had heard rumors. Off-world labor camps. Illegal. Hidden from the Galactic Council. "How did you escape?" he asked. "I pretended to be dead," Leary said. Her voice shook. "They put me on the trash transport. I broke the seal and rolled out in the woods. I carried Tariq and ran. I ran until I couldn't anymore." She looked down at her son. "He hasn't eaten in 2 days. I thought I'd lose him." Mark didn't speak. He stood up and went outside, needing air. The morning sun was rising. Orange light touched the frost on the leaves. His garden had been half destroyed, but he didn't care. He looked back at the cabin. Inside, a dying alien mother and her son rested. They had no home. No one was coming to help them, except him. He walked back inside and sat across from Leary. "I'll help you," he said firmly. Leary's eyes widened. "Why?" Mark leaned forward. "Because you didn't steal to survive. You stole to keep your son alive." Later that afternoon, Mark left to search his storage room. He found some baby clothes left by his sister years ago. Some canned soup, dried fruit. He brought it all inside. Leary looked at the clothes and shook her head slowly. "You don't have children?" "No," Mark said, folding a small blue shirt. "Not yet, but I've seen enough kids suffer. I won't let yours suffer too." Rusty barked once outside. Mark stepped to the window. He frowned. A strange blinking light floated above the trees in the distance, a silent drone. Watching, his stomach turned cold. "They're looking for you, aren't they?" he asked without turning. Leary nodded slowly. "They want me back. They think my body still belongs to them." Mark locked the door and closed all the curtains. "Not anymore," he said. "You're not going back." Outside, the drone hovered quietly, recording everything. Inside, Mark loaded his rifle with shaking hands. This quiet cabin had just become a battlefield. Secrets behind her eyes. Leary sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes fixed on the window, though the curtains were drawn. Her son, Tariq, was finally asleep, wrapped in a thick blanket. His breathing was soft now, less painful. But Larry's hands were shaking. Mark sat at the table, fixing a power cell with old tools. He hadn't spoken much. The silence in the room felt heavy. He could feel her watching him. But when he finally looked at her, she quickly turned away. "You're hiding something," Mark said quietly. Leary didn't answer. "You told me about the camp, about your escape. But something's missing." Leary stood slowly, her knees still weak, and walked to the window. She didn't open the curtains, just placed her hand gently on the cloth. "You shouldn't have helped me," she said. "Now they'll come for you too." "I don't regret it," Mark replied. She turned toward him, her eyes glowing faintly with sadness. "You don't understand. I'm not just an escaped worker. I wasn't cleaning floors or carrying crates." Mark put down his tools. Then, "What were you?" Leary looked down at her arm and slowly pulled up the sleeve. Her skin had faded blue lines, barely visible now, but they shimmered under the cabin lights. Then she pressed 2 fingers to her wrist. With a soft pulse of light, something projected from her skin. A holographic seal. Strange alien symbols danced in the air. "What is that?" Mark whispered, stepping closer. "It's a tag," she said. "A tracker, and a code. I was registered as Class DX7. A translator, yes, but also..." Her voice dropped. "An enhanced subject. They experimented on me." Mark stared at the projection. "Enhanced?" Leary nodded. "My body can survive cold. My memory is sharper than average. I can speak 19 languages. They didn't create me, but they changed me." She let the projection fade. "They said I was valuable," she continued. "Too valuable to be free. So they locked me in with the others, told me I'd serve until I broke. But I didn't. And that made them angry." Mark was quiet. He looked at Tariq, his small chest rising and falling. "Your son," he said, carefully. "Is he like you?" Lyri's eyes filled with fear. "They'll want him too," she whispered. "That's why I ran. Not just to survive, but to keep him from becoming like me." Mark stood and walked to the cabin door. He opened a hidden panel in the wall and pulled out an old map. He placed it on the table. "There's an old science station," he said. "Abandoned after the war. Few people know about it. It has med kits, power cells, and a secure basement." Lyrie stepped closer. "How far?" 3 days on foot. "One day if I fix the rover in the shed." She stared at the map, then at him. "Why are you helping me like this?" she asked softly. "Most humans wouldn't even share a drink." Mark looked her straight in the eyes. "I've seen people like you before," he said. "Used, hurt, left behind. I didn't help them. But I can help you." Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them quickly. "I don't want pity." "This isn't pity," Mark said. "It's a choice." A sharp knock rattled the cabin door. Mark froze. Leary rushed to her son and covered him. Rusty barked wildly. Mark grabbed his rifle and peeked through a hole in the curtain. A tall man in black stood outside. His skin was too perfect. His eyes glowed faintly red. A drone hovered over his shoulder. "Galactic Authority." Lyri's breath caught in her throat. "He found me." Mark moved to the door. "Stay down. Don't make a sound." He opened the door. A crack. The man smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Good evening, citizen. We detected a strange signal here last night. A malfunction, perhaps. May I step inside?" Mark blocked the door with his body. "Malfunction? No, just fixing an old heater." The man tilted his head. "Your house is off-grid. No registered. Tech usage for months, yet last night something activated." "I've been restoring systems," Mark lied calmly. "Got tired of living like a caveman." The man scanned him silently. "Have you seen anyone unusual?" "A woman. With strange marks on her body?" Mark shook his head. "I'm alone." The man leaned forward. "Harboring fugitives is a crime." Mark stared at him, unflinching. Then I guess I'm lucky I haven't found any. The man waited, then turned away slowly. The drone followed. We'll be watching. The man walked into the woods and disappeared. Mark shut the door and locked it. Lyrie was on the floor still holding her son. They'll come back, she whispered. Then we move at first light, Mark said. No more waiting. He looked at her, really looked, and saw strength in her face. But behind her eyes, he saw something more, a secret even deeper than what she had told him. And Mark knew the real story had only just begun. The search begins. The sun hadn't risen yet, but Mark was already under the old shed, kneeling beside a half-buried rover. Dust and rust covered its frame. He wiped the windshield and tried to open the power hatch. It didn't budge. Behind him, Lyrie stood silently, Tariq wrapped against her chest. Her eyes searched the dark trees around the cabin. They'll come, again, she whispered. But next time they won't knock. Mark nodded. That's why we're leaving before nightfall. He pried the panel open and examined the wiring. If I can recharge this, it'll get us to the science station. We can hide there. Lyrie stepped closer. You're risking your life for me. Mark glanced up. You already said that. I know, she said softly. I just didn't expect kindness here. Mark smiled slightly but kept working. Kindness isn't rare, just hidden. By mid-morning he had the rover running, barely. It rumbled like an old beast and the wheels creaked, but it moved. Inside the cabin, Lyrie packed what little they had. Water, food, blankets. She hid a small glowing crystal inside her son's blanket, a memory stone from her world. It held images, voices, her old name. She pressed it to her heart once, then tucked it deep inside the folds of cloth. Tariq was awake now, quiet but alert. His eyes followed everything. When Mark entered to help, the child stared at him and whispered, "Safe?" Mark nodded, kneeling down. "You're safe with me." Tariq blinked slowly and smiled. That afternoon, Mark saw something in the sky, a new drone, larger than the last one. It hovered high, scanning the land with blue pulses. Then it flew, off toward the east. Mark frowned. They're sweeping the area. Lyrie looked nervous. How long do we have? Hours, maybe less. She touched her son's forehead. We'll be ready. But before they could leave, Rusty barked sharply from outside. Mark grabbed his rifle and went to the door. Lyrie held Tariq tight and stepped back. From behind the trees came a second human. Not a soldier, not a drone, a man. Dirty, limping, and holding a cracked visor helmet. He raised his hands. Easy, I saw your light. I'm not with them. Mark didn't lower the rifle. Who are you? Name's Kellen. I work the mining grid east of here. I heard shouting last night, machines flying low. Something's wrong out there. Mark studied him carefully. Why come here? Kellen pointed toward the sky. They're doing a wide sweep. Not just drones, patrol walkers too. They're looking for something. Or someone. Mark's grip on the rifle tightened. What did you hear exactly? Kellen hesitated. They're saying an escaped experiment is on the run, a female. Gen Code Delta. Valuable. Dangerous if provoked. Mark didn't react, but Lyrie's face turned pale. Kellen glanced past Mark and caught a glimpse of her inside. It's her, isn't it? Mark raised the rifle. That's close enough. Kellen held up both hands. Hey, look, I'm not with them. I've seen what the authority does to your kind, he said to Lyrie. They don't care about justice. They care about control. Lyrie stepped forward slowly. Then why come here? Kellen lowered his voice. Because I know the back roads. I can help you disappear if you trust me. Mark still wasn't convinced, but Lyrie looked him in the eyes. He's telling the truth. Mark sighed. Then you ride with us, but no sudden moves. Kellen smiled. Fair enough. By evening, the rover was loaded. Tariq sat on Leary's lap, wrapped in blankets. Kellen sat in the back, adjusting a broken tracker jammer he'd stolen from his job. Mark checked the scanner one last time. Something flickered. A red signal, moving fast toward them. "Go!" Leary shouted. Mark jumped into the driver's seat and hit the ignition. The rover roared to life and sped into the woods. Trees rushed past them. The scanner beeped again. A patrol walker, four-legged, armed with scanners, was chasing them. "They're tracking energy spikes." Kellen shouted. "We need to kill all signals." Mark threw the jammer on the dashboard. "Then jam them now." Kellen twisted the dial. The jammer buzzed, then hummed, and the red dots vanished from the scanner. For now, Mark kept driving. Behind them, the cabin was now a memory. Quiet, and marked for search. Ahead of them, only dark woods and cold wind. But in Larry's arms, the child slept. Safe. And beside Mark, her hand slowly reached for his. They didn't speak. But in the silence, a new bond formed, not just survival, a promise. The visitor from the stars. The forest was dark now. The moonlight filtered through tall alien trees, casting strange shadows across the dirt road. The rover bumped along a hidden trail, tires kicking up dust. Mark kept his hands tight on the controls. Kellen sat beside him, checking the scanner again and again. The signal was quiet now, but they all knew it wouldn't last. In the back seat, Larry held her sleeping son close. Her eyes were half shut, but her body was alert. Every noise outside made her muscles tense. Then, the signal returned. Not red. Not a drone. Something else. A new symbol blinked on the scanner. Blue. Slow. Steady. "What is that?" Mark asked. Kellen leaned forward. "That's, not from the authority." Larry looked up. "Then who?" They stopped the rover near a cliffside clearing. The stars above were bright and sharp, lighting the area like silver fire. And then, a beam of white light broke the sky. A silent ship descended from the clouds. It didn't roar or hum, it floated, smooth and soundless, like a dream. Its body was round, covered in mirror-like plates that reflected the moon. Mark grabbed his rifle. "Everyone out. Stay low." Leary shook her head. "No, this isn't a warship." The ship hovered, just above the trees, then released something. A small pod dropped gently into the clearing. It didn't crash. It landed like a feather. The ship waited, then vanished into the sky, gone, just like that. They all stood frozen. Kellen whispered, "That was not human." Mark stepped forward slowly, rifle ready. The pod opened. Inside was a tall figure wrapped in dark robes. Glowing symbols moved across its chest like a slow heartbeat. The face was hidden beneath a mask, smooth, polished, and golden. It spoke, not with its mouth, but directly into their minds. "Leary of House Varel, you are not forgotten." Leary gasped. I know that voice." The figure stepped out of the pod. It wasn't walking. It was gliding slightly above the ground. "We searched every cycle. We thought you were dead." The council grieved. Mark moved in front of Leary. "Who are you?" "I am a watcher. I serve the ancient oath of protection to House Varel, the royal line." Mark turned slowly to Leary. "Royal?" Leary looked at the ground. "I was born into the Varel line," she admitted. "We were leaders, peacekeepers, before the war scattered us. I hid my name to survive. The camps didn't care about bloodlines. They only cared about breaking us." The watcher bowed his head. "Your signal awakened an old beacon hidden inside your child's genetic code. He carries the last seal. The galaxy knows now. And so do your enemies." Mark stepped back. "That ship, it found you because of Tariq?" Larry nodded slowly. "He was born with it, a mark of my family. That's why the camps wanted him. The Watcher turned to Mark. You, human, have protected royal blood. You have broken galactic law and saved what the Empire forgot. Mark gripped his rifle tighter. If you're here to take her, forget it. The Watcher tilted his head. No. I am here to serve her and protect her. With you. Everyone went quiet. Even the wind stopped. Kellen took a step forward. Then what now? The Watcher opened a small glowing tablet and placed it in Leary's hands. This is a key. The science station ahead, it is not just a shelter. It's an old outpost of your house. If you reach it, you can unlock your name, your power, and reclaim your future. Leary's fingers shook as she held the device. But they'll come. They'll chase us. Yes, because now they know you. Live. The Watcher turned back toward the pod. I will delay them, but you must run. The pod lifted again and closed. One path ends tonight, but another begins. And just like that, the Watcher was gone, vanished in the light of the stars. Mark, Leary, Kellen, and little Tariq stood in silence. Everything had changed. Leary wasn't just a mother running for safety. She was a hunted queen, and now the entire galaxy would know. A plan to escape. The sun had not yet risen. A cold mist spread across the trees like a soft blanket of ghosts. Mark stood alone near the cliffside clearing, watching the horizon. His face was hard, focused. Behind him, inside, the rover, Leary fed Tariq with careful hands. She looked different now, her back straighter, her eyes sharper. Not just a mother, a queen in hiding. Mark returned to the campfire and crouched beside Kellen, who was drawing lines in the dirt with a metal stick. We're here, Kellen said, circling their position on the crude map. The outpost is here, 40 kilometers north, but there's a problem. Mark frowned. What? 2 drone towers, one on each side of the valley. If we go through, we'll trigger the sensors. And around? Kellen shook his head. Too slow, too open. They'll catch us. Mark stared at the dirt. Then we make them blind. Inside the rover, Leary placed her hand over Tariq's chest. He had fallen asleep again. Warmth returned to his skin. He looked peaceful. She touched the glowing tablet the Watcher gave her. Symbols danced across its surface, and a faint pulse connected to her skin. This was a door, but to open it she had to survive long enough to reach it. Mark entered and knelt beside her. We leave in 2 hours, but first, he opened a hidden case from beneath the rover seat. Inside was a small black bag, smooth, locked. He looked at Leary. There's something I haven't told you. Leary's eyes narrowed. Mark unlocked the bag and took out a folded jacket. On its sleeve was a faded patch, HSF, Human Space Forces. Leary blinked. You were a soldier? Mark nodded, slowly. A long time ago, I fought in the outer dust conflicts, saw things, did things. After the war, I ran. I came here to forget. He looked at her, voice low. But now, I remember why I fought in the first place. Leary touched the jacket, then looked at Mark. I believe you, she whispered. 2 hours later, the plan began. Kellen rode ahead on a stolen hoverbike, carrying a fake energy beacon. His job? Distract the drones, lure the patrol bots south. Mark and Leary waited inside the rover, hidden under a layer of camo cloth. Tariq slept soundly, now with a soft blue light glowing beneath his blanket, the royal seal growing stronger. Mark looked at Leary. Once we reach the outpost, what happens? Leary stared ahead. I activate the gate. My people may come for me. Or not. I don't know who's still alive. But if no one comes... She touched Tariq's face. I still have him. I still have you. A pause. You still want to be with us, Mark? He didn't answer with words. He reached out and took her hand gently. She smiled. But then, the scanner beeped. Red, fast. Multiple dots, closing in. Kellen's voice burst through the old comms. Mark, they're not chasing me. They're heading. Your way, they knew it was bait. Mark jumped into the driver's seat and turned on the rover. We're moving now. Leary held tight to Tariq as the rover launched forward, tearing through the forest path. But it was too late. The trees ahead parted. A walker's metal legs stepped into the path, tall, armored, eyes glowing. Mark cursed and swerved hard. The rover smashed through a side trail. Branches cracked. Sparks flew. Behind them, the walker fired a warning shot. Bright plasma hit a tree, exploding it into flames. Tariq screamed. Lyrie covered him with her body. Kellen, Mark shouted. We need another way. There's a canyon 2 clicks. West, Kellen yelled back. It's deep and dangerous, but they can't follow. Mark grinned grimly. That's exactly what we need. He turned the rover sharply left. The forest got tighter. Branches scratched the windows, but the scanner showed the walker slowing down. It couldn't fit between the trees. Mark looked at Lyrie. Hold on. The canyon appeared suddenly, a steep drop, a narrow bridge of rocks, and beyond it, the hidden trail that led to the science outpost. Mark didn't slow down. Leary gasped. You're not... Yes, I am. The rover hit the rocks. The front wheels jumped. Then they flew. The rover soared across the canyon gap, engine screaming. For a heartbeat. Everything went silent. Then, crash. The rover landed hard, bounced once and skidded to a stop. Dust and sparks filled the air. But they were across. They had made it. Mark exhaled. Tariq was still sleeping, safe in Leary's arms. And ahead of them, in the trees, hidden beneath old vines, the entrance to the outpost. A black door, covered in symbols, waiting to be opened. A new home in the stars. The black door stood before them, silent, ancient, and half-buried in the side of the hill. Mark stepped forward first, brushing off the vines. Strange alien symbols pulsed under his fingers as he touched the cold surface. Lyrie moved beside him, holding Tariq close. This is it, she whispered. This place, it belonged to my family long ago. A sudden click echoed in the quiet forest. The door began to shift, stone grinding against stone, revealing a smooth hallway filled with blue light. Dust floated in the air like stardust. Mark stared. Kellen whistled softly behind them. You sure this isn't a palace? Lyrie stepped through first, her bare feet touching the glowing floor. The moment she crossed the threshold, a voice rang out. Soft, gentle, and not human. Welcome back, heir of Virel. You have returned. Tariq opened his eyes slowly, his tiny hand lifting. The light in the walls responded to him, growing, brighter with his heartbeat. Mark followed, rifle still in hand just in case. The hallway led them into a central chamber, round, tall, and filled with lights, screens, and floating orbs. It felt like stepping into a dream from the stars. Leary walked to a crystal pedestal in the center. She placed the glowing tablet the Watcher gave her into the pedestal. Everything changed. The lights dimmed, then surged with power. A projection appeared, an image of her people, her ancestors, her planet. Her true name spoken in alien symbols. Lyrie, Virel, daughter of peace. Last light of the forgotten house. Mark couldn't speak. She looked beautiful, like a queen in the stars. But her eyes still held sorrow. As Lyrie activated the systems, Mark checked the scanners again. His face darkened. Drones approaching. 2 gunships too, Kellen cursed. They tracked us after all. Leary turned to the control panel. There's a shield system, but it's been offline for years. Mark looked around. Can you fix it? She shook her head. No, but you can. Mark grabbed the tools and ran toward the power room. Kellen followed. Inside, wires hung like vines. Sparks flew from broken panels. Mark got to work, hands moving fast, his old training kicking in. Behind them, alarms began to scream. Outside, The drones arrived. But this time, Mark was ready. He slammed the final switch. Blue light exploded around the base. A hum shook the ground as the old planetary shield activated, a perfect dome around the hilltop. Outside, the drones fired plasma, but nothing got through. Inside the chamber, Leary watched the shield rise around them. Mark returned, covered in smoke and grease. "You did it?" she said, voice full of shock and wonder. He smiled. "I told you I wasn't just a farmer." Later, that night, the three of them sat together in the heart of the outpost. Tariq slept peacefully in a real bed for the first time. Kellen patrolled the halls, weapon ready. Leary and Mark sat quietly, watching the stars through the glass ceiling. "You could leave now," she said softly. "You helped me escape. You don't owe us anything more." Mark didn't answer right away, then he turned to her. "I'm not leaving." She blinked. "Why?" "Because I found something out here, something better than a quiet life." Reached over and gently took her hand. "I found you." Her eyes filled with tears. She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. Days passed. Then weeks. The outpost was repaired, bit by bit. A garden grew near the entrance. The shield held strong. One morning the sky opened again. Another ship descended, but this time it carried no soldiers. It carried her people. Survivors. Exiles. Other lost heirs from the stars, answering the call of the last living Varel. They knelt before Larry, but she raised them to their feet and pointed to Mark. "This is the man who gave us hope. If I am your light, he is the fire that kept it burning." Years later, the galaxy would know her story. The story of the alien mother who ran in the night, hungry, broken, and afraid. The story of a human who saw more than just fear. He saw family. And the story of a child, born with a secret, who lived to see the stars again. Together, they built more than a home. They built a future, a place where no one would be forgotten again. The end.